afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
For the record, and what the sign says, is that you are Captain Sam Houston of the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you were part of the BTK task force, is that right?
I worked on part of the case, yes.
Were you assigned to the matter of the homicide of Dolores Davis, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the date of death in that particular case was January 18th, 1991, is that right?
That's correct.
But in fact, Miss Davis's body was not discovered until subsequently in February 1st of 1991.
That is correct.
Captain Houston, at the time back in 1991, when you were assigned to this case, can you tell me what your rank was with the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department?
At that time, I was a detective with the Sheriff's Office.
And do you recall how you came to be at the scene of the of this particular case back in 1991?
On that weekend, I was the duty detective. I received a duty call from 911. Patrol deputies were on North Hillside requesting a detective and a lab investigator.
What did you learn about Dolores Davis at that time when you went to the address up there at North Hillside?
Deputies had been called to that residence by an acquaintance of hers, and the acquaintance had gone to the residence to contact her, found that the back of sliding glass door of the residence had been broken in with a cinder block, and she was missing from the residence. I arrived about the same time as one of the lab investigators, the patrol deputies at the scene, telling me that the acquaintance had no idea where she was at. Mrs. Davis was missing from the residence. It appeared to be some of the things in the residence were in disarray, and there were items missing from the residence.
Now, the last that she had been seen would have been on the night before, which would have been the 18th of January in 1991. Is that correct?
That's correct, Friday night.
Friday night. And do you know, had she been with a male acquaintance that evening before?
That is correct. She'd been out to dinner with a male acquaintance. They'd gone to the Red Coach at 53rd Street North and I-135 for dinner. They had returned back to the residence on North Hillside, and he had bid her good evening at about 7:15.
And had she had plans to see her gentleman friend the next day?
That is correct.
And what time would that have been the next day?
Approximately around noon the next morning.
And so at noon the next morning, did he arrive then at her home to find her missing?
He arrived, that's correct. About 12:30 he arrived. The plan was that he was going to wash her car for her, and that's when he discovered that she was missing from the residence.
Now, did you indicate that her vehicle was there at the residence?
When I arrived, her vehicle was sitting in the driveway of the residence. And
did you at that time locate any keys to that car?
Through the investigation, the gentleman friend indicated to us that he saw a set of keys up on the roof above the garage portion of the residence.
So during the investigation, you found that this had been a home burglary done by somebody throwing a large cinder block through the glass door into the home. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mrs. Davis was missing.
That's correct.
And that she had been seen by her gentleman friend, that would be a Mr. Ray, the evening before. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And she was no longer at the residence on the 19th.
Correct.
Okay. What activities did the Sheriff's Department take at that time in order to attempt to locate Ms. Davis?
The patrol deputies were assigned to different areas in the north part of the county, searching the areas, the roadways. Assignments were made to them. Neighborhoods were done with the neighbors in those areas to locate, see if anyone had seen anything that had taken place at the North Hillside address.
And did there come a time when you located one of the road patrol officers located some items from her home that were close within that area?
That's correct. Approximately around 7:30 that night, Deputy Matt Schroeder found bed sheets and bed items on Woodlawn just north of 69th Street North, stuffed in a culvert.
When those items were located, were you able to ascertain whether they matched anything in the residence on North Hillside?
When I was at the residence and I made my walk through the residence, the bed had been stripped. There was no sheets, no bedding on the mattress in the residence.
And the items that were in the culvert, what did they consist of?
They consisted of a sheet, or two sheets, two top sheets. I believe that's what was in that culvert.
When you were able to visit with people that were familiar with the home, were any other items of interest alleged to have been taken from that house?
That's correct. The jewelry box there was a jewelry box that was missing from the residence. I was informed that a camera was missing. There were some of the drawers in her bedroom were open. It looked like it had been gone through.
Was there any particular types of apparel drawers that seemed to have been rifled through?
The women's lingerie drawers had been gone through.
As you continued to work on the investigation of Dolores Davis as a missing person, did you develop any immediate determinations or clues as to her whereabouts at that time?
We didn't know where she was at. When we found the sheets in the culvert, we knew that something bad had gone wrong.
Were there any other signs around the house other than the break-in? Did you note whether or not the phone lines had been cut?
We did find that the phone lines had been cut on the outside of the residence. We did note that the phones had been pulled out of the walls, or the jacks had been pulled out in the inside of the residence. There was Miss Davis had a cat. She had cats. The cat litter box had been turned over in the residence. There were items from her purse that were missing. We didn't find a driver's license. We didn't find a Social Security card. So there was quite a few things that were missing from the residence.
By appearances, did it look as if there had been a struggle in part of that home?
There looked like there had been a struggle in the kitchen area, in the doorways going out to the garage area. It looked like there had been something had gone on there.
And also that there had been some rifling through personal property in the bedroom.
That's correct.
When was your next opportunity to have further information about the whereabouts of Dolores Davis?
In February the 1st, I received a page from the office stating that patrol deputies were at a location at 3600 West 117th Street North. A boy was out walking his dog and had found a body of a female underneath of a bridge at that location.
And what action did the Sheriff's Department take at that time?
I went to the scene along with several other members of the Investigations Division. We found the partially clothed body of a female at that location underneath of a bridge. We photographed, we videotaped, we diagrammed the location of this lady's body.
Were you able to identify her at that time?
At that time, we had an idea. I had an idea of who it was. I later took dental records to a dentist Dr. Squires, and had her, Dolores Davis's dental records compared with what Dr. Eckert at the time had given me from the autopsy, and they were confirmed that it was Dolores Davis.
And an autopsy was performed on Miss Davis's remains?
That's correct.
And do you know what the cause of death was?
Ligature strangulation.
And the body was not located then until several, couple of weeks after she had disappeared, January the 18th until February the 1st. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And by that time, had there been significant decomposition of the body?
The body was in stages of decomp, yes.
However, this was in January, and had the weather remained somewhat cold during that period of time?
It was a cold January.
And you said that a young boy had come upon the remains of Mrs. Davis. Is that right?
That's correct.
And was this a remote area where the body had been found?
It's a rural area of Sedgwick County. I believe there's maybe one or two houses along that stretch of 117th. It's farmland. There's not very many residential area homes there.
Was this case then reclassified from a missing person then to a murder?
Correct.
Now, at this time, you had indicated that there were very few clues or leads that would indicate any individual who might be connected with this particular case. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so was this case worked on for a lengthy period of time in order to look for anybody that might have been connected with the death of Ms. Davis?
Yes, it was.
So did this remain, in essence, a cold case for a number of years?
Yes, it did.
Was there a time when this case resurfaced when a possibility of a suspect became apparent?
That is correct.
Can you tell me when that was?
I received a call from Deputy Chief Lee, the Wichita Police Department, in February of this year. He advised me that they had arrested or taken a suspect into custody in conjunction with the BTK cases. He also advised me that this person may be a suspect in the Marine Hedge case and the Dolores Davis case.
Now, you've been in the community as a law enforcement officer for many years, since the 70s, is that right?
I have been with the Sheriff's Department almost 29 years.
And during that time, the community has known about the BTK killings. Had you ever connected them with this particular case?
During this investigation and when this happened, we looked at the similarities with the police department's cases. With Marine Hedge, we looked at the similarities in Dolores Davis. We had the FBI behavior specialist come in. I worked, myself and Sergeant Lee worked with Lieutenant Landwehr and other detectives of the police department. We compared things, we looked at things to see if this case was connected to their cases. So yes, it was done numerous times.
But in these cases, the bodies were left at dump sites as opposed to being left within the homes. There were a number of different things between those other cases in the city of Wichita as opposed to these cases in the county. Is that correct?
Correct.
So back to when you talked to Detective Lee, did you then have the ability to visit with Dennis Rader in February of 2005?
That is correct.
And did you then find from Mr. Rader that he indeed had been the murderer of Dolores Davis and Marine Hedge?
That is correct.
Did you then have an opportunity to speak directly with him about the nature and circumstances surrounding the murder of Dolores Davis back in 1991?
Yes, I did.
Did you talk with him with anyone else present?
Detective Kevin Bradford with the Sheriff's Office was present with me.
All right. And do you remember what date it was that you visited with Mr. Rader?
That was on February 24th, I believe.
That'd be after the 25th.
I don't have it right here in front of me. Yes.
You'd be early if it was on the 24th.
That would be the 25th, I believe.
Now, you've had an opportunity, have you not, to review the videotapes that were taken in connection with his statements that he made to law enforcement officers?
Yes, ma'am.
And you had an opportunity to spend time with him independently about the Davis case.
That's correct.
So I'm going to, you've had an opportunity to look at this PowerPoint presentation, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you know that we went through and you selected some parts from that where you had some discussions with Mr. Rader, and his answers will be on the PowerPoint.
That's correct.
So when we go through this, we'll just take a look and ask you some questions about some of the comments he made during the interview that you had with him back in February of this year, okay?
Correct.
There's a note there from some of the commentary that Mr. Rader made, and this, I believe, talks about how he might have come in contact with Mrs. Davis. Do you recall him talking about how he might have seen her, come in contact with her?
He stated that he saw her, he was out driving, and he saw her, and when he lived up in that area, he was out driving around, and he saw her and thought that would be a possibility.
Now, she lived at 6226 North Hillside, out there in the county.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
As I understand, Mr. Rader lives right down in Park City, and that would be right down 61st Street. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, I have a map here, and two small circles just came down with a line. Do those approximate the distances between Mr. Rader's area where he lives on the left and Mrs. Davis's home there on the right?
That is correct.
So that would be, what, about 1.5 miles down the road from each other, generally?
Correct. Generally.
All right, so that would be in the same area then, out there by Park City and out in the county.
Yes.
And so Mr. Rader indicated that he had seen her before, or?
He saw her at the residence. He saw her either leaving the residence or around her residence.
And this indicates what, that he started getting lazy?
He told me that he started getting lazy after the last few years with Marine Hedge and Davis.
And so he was looking for victims within his own neighborhood. Is that what that appears to be?
That's what it appears to me.
Okay. Now, you were familiar with the materials that were taken during the seizure of property by warrant at Mr. Rader's home and as well at his work site. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, ma'am.
And during the, there was also information that was sent by various communications to different media stations.
That is correct.
That's correct. You'll see here a copy of a cover of a fiction novel that Mr. Rader had sent to Fox News. And another copy was also found in what he terms as Motherlode. Do you see the title of that book?
Yes, ma'am.
What does it say?
Never kill anyone you know.
Now, again, this is Mr. Rader having someone that he's stalking or trolling in his own neighborhood. Would he spend some time in checking these people out? What would he do?
He told me that he would periodically go by. He told me that at the time he would go to the Keachai post office, usually about every day, and that would give him an opportunity to see the back of the house, to go by the house. He told me that he went by several times over a month or so period.
In fact, did he think that Dolores Davis was a man?
For a period of time, he told me he thought she was. He couldn't. She wore her hair real short, and he wasn't sure that it was a guy or whether it was a woman. And then at one point in time, when he was going by, he finally decided that this was a female.
Now, this is an aerial shot from here at the county, showing her properties in a pretty rural area out there at 61st and Hillside. The red circle would be her home, is that right?
That is correct.
What's the blue circle?
The blue circle is some dog kennels. There's a kennel there where people store their dogs, and it's just north and east of Mrs. Davis' residence.
Did Mr. Rader develop a name for Mrs. Davis as one of his projects?
That is correct.
What did he call her?
He called her Dogside.
So that would be PJ Dogside?
That's correct.
And meaning her...
Well, I asked him, I said Dogside, and he said, yeah, you have the dog kennels here by her house and Hillside. So that's where it came from, Dogside.
Did he always drive a car, or how did he get to this area?
He told me one time he went out there on a bicycle and checked it out.
Now, talking about his prowling, what would he do when he'd go out and prowl?
He was trying to find a way into the house. He didn't know how he was going to make it into the house. During the investigation, the lab detectives determined on the north side of the house the south side of the house where Mrs. Davis's bedroom was at, it appeared that someone had been standing out there, would stand out there and watch, peeking in through the windows, looking in through the windows where her bedroom was at. And they'd done that several times. And on the south side of the house, I believe that's where also the phone lines were.
Okay, and that's a scene a scene photo showing that the phone lines were indeed cut at her home. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Here we have a photograph of her cat. Tell us the story of that in the family that was relayed about this particular cat.
In speaking with her son, Jeff Davis, he told me that her mom, or his mom, had said the cats got real spooked one night. She didn't understand what was wrong with him. She thought maybe there was an animal or something that was outside the residence that got him really worked up. During the interview with Mr. Rader, he told me that on one of his attempts that he was looking in through the windows, the cat started smacking the windows. He spooked one of the cats. And so that, to me, that corroborated what Jeff had told me that his mom had related to him prior to her being killed.
She didn't have any big Rottweilers or big dogs there at the house?
No, she had cats. She was a
Just the
cat.
cat.
She was a cat person.
Now, Mr. Rader was involved in not only had work at the as a dog catcher, but also he did some other things, including scouting. Is that right?
That's what he said.
Tell us about that.
He stated that he was really involved with scouts. He stated that he used the scout thing several times to be able to get away to do his deeds. On the night that he went to Mrs. Davis's residence, he was at a scout function in Harvey County.
Now, the Boy Scouts, you have some kind of Boy Scout thing in the winter time out at the Trapper's Lodge. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Every January, the Boy Scouts here in this area have what they call Trapper's Rendezvous, and it's always held at Harvey County Westlake in north or in the western part of Harvey County. It's up by north of Halstead, north and west of Halstead, Kansas, and they go up to Harvey County Westlake and they camp out. It's the dead of winter. It's usually the coldest part of the winter. They have a lot of mountain man type activities, tomahawk throws, old time stuff that they would have, simulating back to the trappers in the 1800s.
What age group is this? Cubs or this Weeblos, or who's this for?
Well, There are Webelos up there, there's Boy Scouts up there. Some troops or some packs will take Cubs up there. Anybody that stays overnight, I believe, has to be, now in this day and age, has to be a Webelo, a second-year Webelo, or Boy Scout. Any of the kids that are younger than that cannot stay overnight.
Okay. Well, what was Mr. Rader's involvement? Was he a Cubs a leader there with this trappers or pack, or?
He was a Boy Scout leader, a Cub leader in one of the churches up there in Park City.
So did he have an obligation up there with this trappers camp?
That's correct.
And on January the 18th, would he have had an obligation in 1991, the night that Dolores Davis was killed? Did he have an obligation at that Trappers Lodge?
That's correct.
Tell me about that obligation.
He stated that he went up there on that Friday night to set up the tents, make ready the camp for his troop for the weekend outing.
And did he use that outing for any other purpose?
Yes, he did.
What was that purpose?
He used that outing for his own purposes of going to Mrs. Davis's house later that night, on Friday night, and killing her.
So as he says in his statement to you, that was his alibi, his cover-up, to go up there and get the camp set up so that he could pretend he was up there and go slip into town and commit a murder.
That is correct.
So he goes up to this trapping camp from his parents' house. Is that right?
He goes to Trapper's Rendezvous. That's where he's at.
Where's that at? How far out?
That's in Harvey County. Harvey County Westlake is approximately you go 3 miles north on the Halstead Road, then you go 3 miles west to where the Harvey County Westlake is.
Okay. Then what did he do?
He left there, and he went to his parents' house on North Seneca.
All right. What did he do at his parents' house?
He changed his clothes from his Boy Scout uniform to his what he stated was his hit clothes.
His hit clothes, are those kind of special clothing that he wears?
He described them as dark clothing, so he couldn't be noticed in the dark. He'd blend in with the dark.
So then he leaves his parents' house, and where does he go from there?
He drives from his parents' house on North Seneca to the Baptist Church on 61st Street in Park City.
Okay, and that would have been on the south side of 61st Street, is that right?
Correct.
What's over at the now the Baptist church isn't his regular church.
No, but it wasn't. But he was affiliated with that church because of the Boy Scouts.
All right, so he has a key to the Baptist church,
Yes, ma'am.
and he's with the Christ Lutheran Church. So he's got access to two churches.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so he goes over to the Baptist church. So what's he going to do over there?
He goes there, makes his final preparation, leaves his car, and then he walks to Mrs. Davis's residence.
Okay, he's already got his hit outfit on, and he drives over there with his vehicle and parks it at the Baptist church. And this is Friday night, is that right?
That's correct.
Do we know about what time this would be?
Would have been around 9:30, 10 o'clock.
All right. By this time, Mrs. Davis is already home, having been dropped off by her friend at 5 o'clock after dinner.
They went to dinner around 5:30.
Got home at
Approximately around 7:15.
All right. So now he's at the Baptist church. So what kind of final preparations is he making?
He was making sure that he had his hit kit, his guns, and the items that he needed for to do what he was going to do.
He needed to get ready to kill Mrs. Davis.
That's correct.
All right. Now, I've got a picture of the Park City Baptist Church, and this is, and we'll show in another slide, this is on the south side of 61st Street out there in Park City.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Not to be confused with his church. Okay, so then he leaves there, and he does what?
He left the church there on 61st Street. He walks down 61st Street, past Hydraulic, and then he starts angling up through an open field on the edge there of Park City. He gets up where that one circle is, up to the north, to the top and right-hand side of this picture is a cemetery.
Okay, let's start in here. I'm pointing to where his home would be, is that right?
That's correct.
But he had come from someplace different, his parents' home.
His parents' home is 4800 block of North Seneca.
So which way would that be?
That would be approximately down in this area, probably.
Okay.
Or over in here.
So he's gone back, actually from his parents' home. His home is in here. We're at the first circle.
Correct.
Then, so he's gone there, and this is 61st Street.
Correct.
This is where the Baptist church is, the second large circle. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so he parks his car there, and then the red line going to the north would be the area that he walked north on 61st Street.
That would be east.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That would be eastbound on 61st Street.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, you indicated that he then went to the north and east to a cemetery, and the second circle here at the top is a cemetery that's located on Hillside. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Now, why did he walk all that direction way up north?
You know, I really don't know. He stated that he wanted to come in from the north side of the residence. I think he was afraid of being spotted on 61st Street because that's a fairly traveled roadway.
Okay, so this is just woodsy or what? I mean, just land and.
In 1991, this was open field. There was nothing there.
This is a 1991 map, isn't it?
That is correct.
Okay. So this kind of barren field and just walking across there to the cemetery. Okay, then coming back down to the south and to the down south here. And then this circle would be where Mrs. Davis's home was.
That is correct.
And the kennels behind it.
That is correct.
All right. Now, here's a photograph, and what does that show us?
This is the back of Mrs. Davis's house on North Hillside. That is the sliding glass door where a point of entry was made into her residence.
What's this out here?
That's broken glass from the sliding glass door, shattered glass. This is another photograph of the rear of her residence. There's the shed here behind her residence, a little metal shed. That's where we believe the cinder block that was thrown through the sliding glass door came from.
You discussed with him about the house and where it was located, and that's where he told you about why he called her Project Dog Site. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And again, the aerial photograph of her property.
That is correct.
Now, once he gets up to the home, he's still stalking her. What does he see?
He sees that she's laying in bed. She's reading. He's there for a little while. Then pretty soon the lights go out. He waits for some time longer until he feels that she's asleep, in case she would hear him outside or banging around or whatever.
And then that's when he enters through this back door.
It's when he gets the cinder block, throws it through the back sliding glass door, and makes entry into the residence.
And this would be the room that he entered into, and that's the cinder block. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's like the family room or the living room area portion of this residence.
Okay, then what happened?
She came out of the back the bedroom. She thought he states that she thought he'd ran into her house with his car. It made that much noise. she asked him, "Did you hit my car with did you hit my house with your car?" And he stated that he was wanted, that the police were after him. He needed her house, he needed her car, he needed her money, some food, and then he was going to tie her up.
Did he indicate how she reacted?
She backed up. She backed away from him, and she says, "You can't be in here." He said that she told him that you can't be in here, and he told her, he said, "You're going to cooperate." He told her he had a gun and a club, and he knew he had to take control of it real quick.
Now, he talks a lot about control, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
And control and Factor X and things like this. But by and large, in your discussions with Mr. Rader, would you say he's a person that wants to be in control?
Total control.
So in this circumstance, again, in the notes that he talked about, he said that's the control factor. Then he starts to talk about how you get them under control. And is this typical way, or he calls it a ruse or a rust, but how you start to reel them in a little bit?
Well, he told her he had a gun and a club, and he was pretty forceful with that, and then he kind of ease them a little bit. You start being a little bit nicer to them. You tone it down just a little bit and try to make them feel a little bit more comfortable, which makes them a little more vulnerable that something bad's not going to happen to them.
Did you find that to be the same in all of the other cases?
That's from looking at the other cases, yeah. He'd be real forceful up front, then he'd kind of ease into it, try to reassure them that it was going to be all right, and then he'd really go for it.
And that was his way of how he got to control them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It says that he wanted to spend some time with her, but she said that someone's coming. And I see this quote from him: "I could not believe my luck in these places. I've always got somebody coming." Now, that was Mr. Rader. Was he talking about all the other cases where all the other victims told him somebody's coming?
Yes, I believe in the other cases, like in Vicki Wegerle's case, in I believe in Shirley Vianne's case. They're telling him that somebody's coming. They're trying to help themselves, just like Mrs. Davis told him that somebody was coming home, and he can't believe he's lucking these things. He's always got somebody coming because he wants to spend more time with them.
So he really believes them?
Yeah. Evidently he believes them just like he believed us.
Then he gets around to talking to her about the car and some transportation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then he here starts to says, "I need to get her out of here." What did he start to talk about at that point in time?
Well, his ultimate fantasy was to take one of his victims to a barn. To take him to a barn, to pose him in the bondage, to hang him up in a barn, to spend some time with him, and he was trying to figure out how he was going to get Mrs. Davis out of this residence. And so he's trying to think about how he's going to do it.
And how did he accomplish that?
He put handcuffs on Mrs. Davis. He stated he put handcuffs on her at first. He used some pantyhose, tied her legs up, and this was in the bedroom, in her bedroom on her bed, and he got her under control with the handcuffs right up front.
And then, again, she had said that you say somebody's coming, and then they'll find you, and they'll call the police, and I'm out of here. So again, he's trying to make her feel like if somebody's coming, you're going to be okay, don't worry about it, they'll find you, and I'm going to be gone.
That's correct. He's trying to ease her. He's trying to relieve her a little bit, give her some relief that it's going to be okay. Nothing bad's going to happen to her.
But then she figures it out.
Yes, she did.
What did she say to him as he recalled to you?
He stated to me that when he took the handcuffs off of her, and that when he tied her hands up with the pantyhose, and he took the pantyhose from her ankles to her hands behind her back. I think he stated that she knew what was going to happen, and she said, "You're not going to kill me. I've got kids." And he stated at that point, it was too late. She told me she had kids. You know, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me.
And here,
Evening at this time. We'll reconvene at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.